The time now is 5:05. I would like to officially start our meeting. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ayabami Bell Torrance, and I am a marketing outreach coordinator for DDOT. Thank you all for joining us tonight at our second State Fair Transit Center Town Hall meeting. The first one was held this morning. I do want to emphasize the purpose of this meeting and to briefly go over our meeting rules. As a reminder, this is not our regular community input meeting. This is your opportunity to find out more about the Transit Center and to provide your input. Therefore, we are limiting comments to those that involve this project only. You will be interrupted for making comments outside of these guidelines. This meeting will end at 7 p.m. And in order to ensure that everyone has a chance to provide their input, we will be enforcing the 2-minute limit, and you will be muted once we have announced that your time is up. Also, please note, while we welcome and will be recording all feedback, there may be some comments or questions that we may not be able to answer today. As always, no personal attacks or foul language will be tolerated verbally or in the chat. That chat will be open during the public comment period. But again, please restrict use to comments involving the State Fair Transit Center. All comments, including those left unanswered, will also be saved. I would like to now turn it over to our Executive Director of Transit, Mr. Michael Oglesby.
All right, thank you very much. I think before I get started, I'll let Mr. Zek say a few words.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Richard Zek. I'm the Chief Safety Officer for DDOT. This being the second of our 4 meetings on the State Fair Transit Center. In our first meeting, there was many questions related to ADA requirements for the transit facility, security requirements, questions on cameras, the general safety of passengers coming in and out of the facility. I would like everyone to know that as the facility is built, there are preliminary hazard assessments done, operational hazard assessments done, and also after the transit facility is cleared for occupancy, the DDOT Safety Department will continue to do audits and inspection of the security posture of the State Fair Transit Center. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Richard. I think that was it was important to get that information out. So good morning, it's not good morning, it's good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for participating in today's meeting. It's been a long day, obviously. I don't know the difference between the morning and the nighttime, but you're here to learn about the planned transit center at State Fairgrounds. DDOT has worked very closely with the City of Detroit, the Detroit Building Authority, DBA, and other agencies since the redevelopment of the State Fairgrounds was approved by the City Council in October 2020. We held virtual workshops and public hearings the following month. In fact, many of you attended, many attended earlier today and probably are here and were involved in those meetings. We posted the results of the state facility equity analysis and updated you with the finalization of the new location. And now the wait's over, and today is your chance to hear directly from the design team behind this project. They have a great presentation for you, and I believe it will answer a lot of your questions. It's an opportunity for you to give us feedback. And I think it's important for everyone to know that the existing routes that are going to the existing transit hub will be going to this transit center, the 54 Wyoming, the 30 Livernois, 17 8 Mile, 4 Woodward, 12 Conant, and 23 Hamilton. So before we get to that and more information, let's kick it off. And I'd like to introduce to you Tyrone Clifton, Director of the DBA.
Thank you, Director Oglesby. Good afternoon, everyone. The DBA appreciates the opportunity to bring this fabulous project to life with DDOT, our partner in this project. Along with us today, we have the design build team consisting of Ideal Contracting, Nora Architects, and DLZ Consultants. Ideal Contracting is a Detroit headquartered minority firm that was selected through a request for qualifications process. They've been very involved in Southeast Michigan. They've been very involved in the city of Detroit, and they participate in the Grow Detroit Young Talent Program, and they're constantly on the look for talent, skilled labor, and opportunities for Detroiters. Nora Architects is a Detroit-based architectural firm. They'll be the lead designer on this, and DLZ Consultant is another Detroit-based firm who will help with the transit design aspect of this program. So with that, I'd like to hand it off to our project architect, Sean Yingyak with Nora Architects. Sean, take it away.
Thank you, Tyrone. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight. I'm just going to get the project up on the screen here, make sure everybody's good. So my name is Sean, and I'm the lead designer on the project. I work with Nora Architects on this design team. Proud to lead this project. It's a very exciting and unique project for the city of Detroit. What you see here, this is the cover of the presentation. It's the chosen design project that's presented some major design challenges and objectives, such as a new transit center as a destination, a historical push for adaptively reusing the dairy cattle and Coliseum from the former state fairgrounds, which are on the historical registry, creation of a new public space for events, and a requirement to give back to the community. So I'll move into the presentation, and here is, this is just a location map indicating the general context or location of the new Michigan State Fairgrounds Transit Hub in relationship to the downtown Rosa Parks Transit Center here at 8 Mile and Woodward at the north part of the downtown core. This here is a site analysis plan. It highlights the proposed development parcel in red. It indicates here, it indicates the access route for buses and pedestrians and vehicular traffic. Yellows indicating bus routes, and then blues typically indicating vehicular traffic. It also includes the adjacent properties to this location, including Hillwood development, which is to the southeast of us. There's a future development to the northeast, the north, and just south of us as well. You have the retail center adjacent to it on the west side of it. And you got directly adjacent to it is another historical building outside of our scope, which is the Joe Dumars Field House. And then down here at number 6 is the existing transit station location. So moving on to what we proposed here was converting the dairy cattle building into the transit center. And the Coliseum is, in this proposal, ended up having to be primarily demolished, but we're turning it into the Coliseum Park. Here's a look cutting through the dairy cattle building, in which we proposed, actually driving the buses straight through it and circulating them through it and flanking on each side amenity spaces. This will allow for a beautiful covered indoor space representing, I guess a precedent would be a European Transit Center or something along those lines, and presenting the historical nature of what the site represents as a Michigan State Fairgrounds has been around for nearly 100 years. Here's the Coliseum building enlarged on the left, dairy cattle building on the right, and the center here is the dairy cattle building interior of the space, in which we envision transversing with the buses right through the space. And you can see the beautiful structure that's inside that we'd like to preserve. This here is this image is sort of the design intent. The design intent is to promote the celebration of the history of the Michigan State Fairgrounds throughout. So here you see the transit center with the buses actually circulating through it. And then on the south portion, you'll have the new public plaza called Coliseum Park. And we're preserving the south portico entrance of the Coliseum as sort of a historical memento to the site. That plaza will provide all kinds of things such as concerts, movie nights, weddings, tasting events, educational trips, and art shows, and yoga and all types of events like that. It'd also be dual as a location for the new development just east of it for employees to come for lunch, etc., similar to Campus Martius type of multi-service space. So here is the proposed site plan. This shows a separation of buses and vehicular circulation, which enhance the safety for pedestrians and reduces confusion. In yellow, well, in red here, this is the property line here, the parcel on which we are allocated, and I'm trying to maximize the space. So we have the dairy cattle building here to the north in this rectangle, and then this is the outline. It's very faint, but this is the outline here of where the Coliseum building will eventually be demolished here. So the focus was bus traffic, number one, which is the yellow arrows coming from into 8 Mile at the north here for the east-west access, and then driving south, and then it'll eventually go out to Woodward Avenue. So in blue here, you see the vehicular circulation. Access points are separated from bus traffic, make it as clear as possible. There's a vehicular drop off here at the east side of the dairy cattle building. Everything's accessible, and this is where the main entrance will be to the dairy cattle building. The buses will transverse through the space, and they can circulate out north to 8 Mile, or they can continue to wrap and loop around all the way back down to Woodward Avenue. At the south portion of the site is the portico portion, flanking the south portion of the new Coliseum Park event space, along with vehicular parking for staff and visitors alike. Here we have a link between the two spaces, which is a covered promenade, sort of guiding pedestrians through this space and making it as safe as possible when bus traffic is moving back and forth. And all the red little arrows that you see throughout, those are all, representing major pedestrian access points on the site. The north, you got the access points to 8 Mile. You have the main entrance here on the east, crosswalks highlighting the access from the new development to the east. And then we have access to the Joe Dumars side of the site on the west side, and then a major access to the retail center that's adjacent here, which is number 4. At the south portion, that's the portico of the Coliseum, and this is a hardscape / softscape space for all those different types of events that can be housed here. Moving on to the dairy cattle building floor plan, and the intent is on the east side of the building is going to be a fully climatized space for the function of the DDOT and smart transit services and programming. In the center is where the buses drive through in a semi-climatized space, which will provide, shelter in the winter and provide, a cooler space in the summer when the harsher climates hit us. On the west side here, it's all in this orange is a leasable space, as it's also going to be, there's going to be proposals probably for, anything from a cafe to a restaurant or any kind of commercial retail space, etc. The transit center itself in the green on the south part, this would be a staff bus driver space. Then you have indoor bicycle secured storage for pedestrians. You have ticket office opening up and creating as much views from the main lobby space into the concourse, so the riders can see the buses, and it creates safety and security for any of the pedestrians. We have a waiting area for lots of seating. We've proposed a historical display space in here, which will present images potentially, or all sorts of things of the history of the state fairgrounds. And then on the north portion, we have the facilities, the restrooms, and then we got police and security in there. So moving into the first rendering of the main entrance at the transit center. You can see here there's a location for bicycles, and this could be a dedicated location for scooters, so they're not all over the place. Nice and organized, and gives you a nice sense of entry into the space here with accessible parking spaces and drop-off locations for riders. And today we discussed taxi services being able to have dedicated spaces here as well. The main entrance, this building itself, the design, the look of it is based on the historical intent of the building. We aren't doing too much to change that, but we will be improving it because the building is a little rundown. So here's a view from the northeast corner of the transit center. You can see the buses leaving here. You see a few statues on the site. So the site's we're gonna propose some sort of artistic approach to representing the historical portion of the site. This is a view heading down the street south, looking back at the dairy cattle building as well. It just gives you a sense of the park feel and the welcomeness of this space. This is bringing us right into the lobby space where you can see we're going to try and open up the view into out of this climatized space into the semi-climatized space and expose that structure. And then you can see there's the waiting area and then the sort of historical, location over here, something interactive for children and adults alike. And this is a view looking down the center island of the bus drop off and pickup locations, showing that sort of, European transit center with a huge covered canopy, providing nice safety and security and comfort for the riders to be able to get to and from their buses. This is just a view coming back underneath the covered promenade, looking back at the transit center. And here is sort of the introduction, I guess, of the Coliseum Park space, where we begin to create a hardscape / softscape space. And we're creating a buffer here between the transit center and the space to allow for, noise and trying to create just a more quaint space away from traffic. So we have opportunities for, we got a band shell shown here, a temporary stage shown, and people can come for lunch with the food trucks. And it could be, a concert venue. It could be yoga studio stuff like was discussed at the beginning. And then this is just another perspective of this, and you can see there's additional transit stops at the south portion of the transit center, which will allow for riders to be able to get here from outside parking locations if that becomes an issue. So, and then this is an overall perspective of the space, and that does it for the presentation from my perspective. I will hand this back over to Director Clifton.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate that. So once again, we would like to start the comment section portion of today's meeting. As stated previously, we're going to hold this to 2 minutes, and the focus today is on this presentation that we just provided for the new State Fair Transit Center. So we want to get your feedback on items that we should be considering and inclusionary of what this could be. I'll send it back to you, Ms. Torrance.
Thank you so much. With that, I'll begin With that, I will begin with the hands raised. You jumped on me. Okay, the first one I'll go with is Ted Tansley.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Loud and clear.
All right, great. So I just had a couple of questions I just wanted to ask. So I was curious about how the smart fast buses would be impacted by this transit location. I'm curious about air ventilation within the building, uh, considering we're driving buses inside a closed space for the most part. Also, really interested in the non-motorized connections, more so than just the pedestrian sidewalks. It looked like there was plenty of space, if not too much space, for motor vehicles like personal cars to get to and access this transit center, but it didn't look like there was a safe way for non-motorized like bicycles to get to the transit center safely without it being interfered with motorized traffic like buses and cars. And then also, I think it would be a great location for a MOGO station. That's what the image looked like to me in that exterior outdoor parking for bikes. It looked like that would be a good MOGO station in general, and to connect to that regional bicycle sharing network that we have. Yeah, that's all the questions I had, just those few.
I can talk to the ventilation is something that's absolutely been discussed in this space. So that's going to be handled with the mechanical design going forward. Creating as much healthy environment as we can until electric buses become 100% one day. And yes, you were correct about that being a MOGO station at the main entrance. It'll also be a good location to dedicate for scooters on the site. Is just try to attempt to keep everything as organized as possible. And I'm not, does Tyrone want to speak to any of those other questions?
What was the additional question, Sean?
So I had an ask about how the smart buses would be impacted, particularly the fast route buses, and then also the non-motorized connections to and from the transit center for the community to be able to bike safely and away from car traffic without interfering with pedestrian walking traffic.
Oh, I appreciate the question, Mr. Tansley. What we've done is coordinated the development with the developer for the larger project that's ongoing. The new roads that are being constructed with wider sidewalks to allow for pedestrian and bicycle traffic. So pedestrians should be able to traverse that site via Woodward and 8 Mile without a safety concern of being sharing the roads with the cars and trucks and buses. And also there is a small entry off of State Fair too. That'll be key for pedestrians getting to and from the site. The new roads transact the site north and south and east and west, so it should be fairly accessible. As far as SMART, we have communicated and planned this accordingly with SMART. I believe that they are in alignment with what we're trying to do and what we're trying to build, and it should meet their needs too.
Okay. How wide would those sidewalks be? Are we talking 10 feet, 12 feet?
Oh, I can't, I don't remember
that?
off the top of my head, but they're definitely wider. They're not 12 feet. I think 10 sounds appropriate from the last time I looked at that. But
Okay.
they're definitely
I'm just trying
wider.
to imagine like being a bicycle and taking up maybe 3 feet at
Correct.
least wide, and then a family of a few with their stroller and that sort of thing, and having the proper space so the bicyclists could pass safely without making the family feel afraid for their own safety in that sort of situation.
And thank you, Mr. Tansley. Your time is up.
Thanks.
No, and we appreciate the comment. We really do.
Thank you. And I do want to, I know there's other comments in the chat, but I do want to jump to one from Miss Marguerite Maddox, because she there's a note that she will feel more comfortable listening this way. So I would like to read her comment now. Is there any platform in the State Fair area? And are there going to be any signages of where to go, like service dog rest areas and restroom areas?
So yes, the answer to those questions are yes. So obviously we will have wayfinding on the property that would direct citizens and ridership accordingly, where to go to get tickets, kiosks, restrooms. What came out of the morning session was charging stations for motorized scooters for the ADA. So we do understand that there's a need for that. And also making sure I've seen the water fountains now that have where you can also have a small fountain for service animals. So those are the things that we're taking into consideration and hopefully are willing to program into this project. And yes, chargers, I think that's a big thing. Everyone has smartphones, so we want to incorporate that too.
Awesome, thank you. I'll go ahead and move now to our next person, Ms. Bennett.
Good evening, all. This is Victoria Burnett. One of the questions that, and I'm not sure if you guys had already answered because I got on a little late, was in regards to the accessibility of the bathrooms.
So Ms. Bennett, the restrooms will be ADA accessible, absolutely. We will make sure that they meet code. And if we need to go a little bit further than that, just to be sensitive, we're more than willing to hear that and understand what that means.
So are they going to be open 24 hours or at least as while the buses are running?
They're definitely going to be open while the buses are running for the 24-hour operation. I'll leave that to Chief Brown.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Ms. Burnett. This is Chief Brown, Transit Police. We did discuss that earlier, and yes, when we have the approval from the health department and everything, we fall in line with them regarding access to the facilities during this pandemic. But once that is cleared, they will be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As long as the buses are running, the facility will be accessible.
Okay, and my name is Burnett.
I said,
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Our next hand raised that I see is Ms. Fadawa. You should be able to.
Hi, it's Patty Fedawa. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right, terrific. Thank you. Thanks for having this hearing. I heard some comments about SMART that they were on board. Does that mean that the fast buses will be running through the transit center? I was wondering, what about the auxiliary location, the bus stop, sort of the extra bus stop that'll be needed because of the location? It's a little bit out of the way. If that's still in existence, what the timeline for building will be, if $7 million is enough to do all this, and how much longer or shorter each route will be due to the location of the transit center, if there'll be real-time signs inside, and there seem to be a lot of parking outside. Is there going to be a park and ride aspect to this transit center? Thank you.
So Ms. Fedwa, thank you for the questions. So yes, we'll have signage. What came out of our morning session was the park and ride and also for car share. So we're going to take a hard look at that and see what we can provide, including taxi stands. So that's very important. Obviously, we're still working through the plans for this project, and we're working under the City Council authorized $7 million. So we're looking at something that's a little bit larger than that. So we will address that with DDOT, the City of Detroit, and City Council when we get to that level. So we understand that. And I think what was the other question too? I think you had a
I
question
was
about
one,
SMART, right?
yes, I thank you. I was wondering about SMART. And you mentioned that you're in alignment with them, but does that mean FAST is actually going through the transit center?
I don't know if FAST is actually going through the transit center. SMART is going to be using this facility. So we have programmed this facility accordingly. I think that's important to know. Obviously, they have several services that they provide. I'm not aware of all of them. I will say that. And there
And
was
also,
another
what about,
question you
I'm
wanted
sorry.
to, oh, yeah, well, our intention is to have and Director Oglesby spoke to this morning too. DDOT's doing some exciting things as it pertains to how you track buses in real time. If it's via an app that you can use that's being developed more. And obviously we want to have those large screens that can show bus routes in the transit center also.
And what about the auxiliary location? Is that still part of this project?
And that is last comment. That is time.
I'm not familiar with the auxiliary locations.
I'm going to call our next person. I see. Well, it's labeled as delusional Detroit resident. So you're allowed to speak.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, correct. And it was disillusioned, not delusional,
Oh, okay.
disillusioned Detroit resident, because I'm so appalled that this historic asset was sold on the rocket docket. Councilmember McAllister said there were 12 community engagement meetings, but I kept asking him when they were, and he never produced them, except the district manager for District 2 produced 3 meetings. So I still cannot get over this. I'm sorry I missed the beginning because of the way this was done to the residents of Detroit. The minimum you could do is put your presentation up on the internet for people who don't know about this or don't have a computer, can't zoom in or anything else. I'm sorry, I'm straddling 2 Zoom meetings. I think it's very problematic that you have a physical limit on 30 people for the August 12th meeting. If you truly cared about the public, you could hold this at request for City Council to be able to hold the public meeting at the Aretha Franklin Amphitheater with a sound system on the outside for overflow so that you could truly engage people instead of do a bunch of backdoor dealing, which I've watched this city do for years now. And then they roll it out to the public and, you know, this stuff. So very disappointed the way transit riders were treated, not really included in this. In the beginning, again, this never, ever, ever should have been sold. I can't get over it. I just cannot believe what this city does to its residents. And so who came up with the idea to put this all together, and why are you only having 3 meetings? Are you going to have more? Are you going to put that stuff up on the internet? Are you going to have the district managers have a talk about it? You're just going to have 3 tiny little meetings and go ahead with your plans anyway. And also, why will the city not tell us what the other planned developments are? That was insulting to.
That is time. Thank you. I will address one quickly, is that our presentations will be available and posted online at a later time.
Tyrone, sorry, I had a break and I just walked in, I think, in the middle of that. So let me see if I can address some of it. The goal of these meetings is really to focus on the transit center portion itself. This is not a representation of the entire project and from the whole planning standpoint, but the transit center, the making sure that we have it built properly for folks from an ADA standpoint, all the way through to getting your opinions on what you think this actual transit center itself should look like, is what these meetings are about. The meetings about choosing the location and all of that from transit and DDOT standpoint. We went through our Title VI process and suggested this as the best location, but we here are really focusing on the public transit part. So we have various people on the phone call that will be taking notes, and we'll be taking everything that you said into consideration moving forward. Tyrone?
Just to reiterate what Director Oglesby say, we'll make this presentation available after we've concluded our meetings, captured all the comments from the ridership and the citizens. We'll post it at on the appropriate websites.
In addition, one of the concerns, especially with the pandemic and the variant, the way that it is quite possible that we will convert the next meeting after this to a Zoom, which will not have a limit. That'll conquer two things. One, from a safety standpoint, it'll probably be more efficient, and two, more people or everybody can attend, which will somewhat offset the concern of only 30 people in a location.
Next hand raised. Ms. Boyd. Claire Boyd, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Claire Norak Boyd. I'm really glad to see that substantial amount of preservation has been worked into the plan. A lot of us have been asking for that. And I mean, these buildings are like these big open sheds. They're very flexible. Yeah, really excited to see that. I would love to see the Coliseum saved as well. I know that's a big ask. I also know that it's on the National Register, and the greenest building is something that's already built versus what I hope will be. I'm glad there's a commons. I'm glad there's like a public park of some sort. Although when I think about, I guess just all of this is like, oh boy, this is really exciting. But when I think about it in terms of the amount of space that we're losing for warehouse jobs at a company that has 150% annual turnover, it's a big shift. Anyway, I just want to say much better preservation. We would love to see more. There are federal tax credits for it. And I guess also just wanted to ask, we've talked about sidewalk width. I would love to see attention to the connectivity of sidewalks. I know you said a little bit about that earlier, but like making sure that people can walk from each of the major streets to the transit center. I mean, I'm sure, you know, we've all gone through these huge strip mall parking lots, and there will be often in the site plan, there will be a patch of sidewalk here, a patch there, but it's not something that would give you an actual safe pedestrian experience. It forces you into the road. So I hope there will be, you know, get out there and actually walk it as before you finalize it, see how that would feel. And that's that. Yeah.
Okay, are we just going to take the input?
I mean, I would love, you know.
I'm asking the staff. We can't.
Okay.
No guarantee that we can respond to all. So everything has been recorded. So I was just making sure that.
Yeah, Ms. Boyd made some excellent comments. We understand what you're saying about bicyclists and pedestrian on the sidewalks. That's not the first time we've heard that. So we do understand that. I ride bikes too. So I'm with you in alignment on that too. We've presented a project here that we took a very hard look at. We had several iterations of looking at different things and trying to figure out what we can afford and manage too. Let's be honest, we need to be able to operate these facilities going forward. I think the adaptive reuse program that's put before us is a excellent solution for what we're trying to do with the new State Fair Transit Center.
Okay, thank you. The next hand raised I see is Renee Valenti. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, hello. What I was going to mention is please make sure the bathrooms are totally ADA accessible, that an oversized wheelchair or scooter can go into the bathroom. The one at Rosa Parks Transit Center is beautiful. You can get an oversized scooter in there comfortably. So that's fine to use as a good judgment. And also, when you develop these sidewalks, make sure in the winter that they are completely clear of snow and ice for your pedestrians, and especially those that are disabled. My scooter can handle up to 2 inches of snow, but ice is dangerous, and if I'm out there and it's coming down, I need to be able to get going. So needs to be kept up. And I'm also curious to know what smart coaches will be coming in to the transits, the new transit. The fast coach currently does not go into the transit center, goes across or on Woodward on the same side if it's going northbound. None of the Woodwards actually pull into the transit center, the current one.
Should we respond, Yabami, or?
It's yes, whoever's available.
Okay. Good question about the Smart Bus. During this entire process, Smart has been working in conjunction with us and has taken a look at the layout that we currently have in front of you. And they have agreed that the existing bus that is servicing the transit hub will be able to service and go into this transit center.
Okay. That's what I figured.
Okay. I will move to our next person, Mary Ann. You should be able to unmute yourself.
There we go. I wanted to say congratulate you actually on the presentation, because I think it looks fabulous. It looks like you're really taking a strong look at the needs of people, balancing the needs of preservation, balancing the needs of those of us with disabilities. And I just want to congratulate you all who have worked on this, because it looks absolutely fabulous. My only question is timelines. When might this become a reality? Because it does look like a dream. As a bus rider, it looks like a dream. But when might it become a reality? And that's my only question. And thank you very much for hosting these meetings and allowing us to give input and get a heads up. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Mary Ann. So we're looking at a timeline of, so currently right now, we are doing our environmental due diligence on the two structures that are there. Hopefully with the reporting that comes out of that, we can look at our selective demo process as early as this fall. So hopefully we can have that type of physical activity on site. Our goal currently is to get this thing completed and turned over to DDOT for their operation late summer, early fall of 2022.
Thank you. And I believe with the previous comment that our chief safety officer also wanted to provide some input. Go ahead.
Yes, and related to snow and ice and the cold winter months that we have here in Detroit, DDOT Safety will work with the appropriate stakeholders to make sure that a plan is put in place before heavy snowfalls arrive so that snow and ice removal can be handled in a timely and efficient manner.
Thank you for that. I'm sorry I missed you before. I am going to call now on Steve. You are allowed to speak.
Yes, hello, how are you? Can you hear me well?
We hear you well.
Thank you very much. On the issue of the transfer to Woodward Avenue bus, the smart bus, because, you know, I travel a lot. I take number 12 or sometimes the number 53 to take when I go to a gig north of the area, north 8 Mile, either Ferndale, Royal Oak, or Pontiac. And I use either the regular fast bus or the regular smart bus. Now, where the current transit center is at, it's not that far, about 500 yards away, waiting for the smart bus. And looking at the plans, you know, I was just wondering if any of the regular smart bus or the fast Woodward bus would go in the new transit center, or do we have to walk our way to Woodward Avenue to catch the north bus to Ferndale, Royal Oak, Pontiac, and all that? And that's my question. I do have a small little follow-up. That's all.
I'm going to intake your information and get together with SMART and hammer out the specifics. As you know, we're still going through the process of finalizing this, and that's why we're here, to hear you, to hear what you have to say, to hear your input and point out your concerns, and then we are to go back and try to work them in. So I don't have the answer for you right now. My person from SMART that I was going to have on couldn't make it, but I can assure you that we will have an answer for you, and it's something that we're going to look at. So thank you for your information and comments.
Thank you very much. And my small little follow-up is the question is how close the new transit center is to the Meyer on 8 and Wood. I know it's a little silly Meyer little question, but I presume it's close, right?
It is. Sean, you can show the one site plan that shows the adjacencies.
Here it is. Number 3 is the Meyer.
Okay.
Number 1 is our transit center.
Okay, that's not that far. Okay.
No.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ruth Johnson.
Good evening. This is Ruth Johnson. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Thank you. I've got several questions and then a comment. I apologize. I was getting off another Zoom meeting and I don't know because I was late if anyone said the estimated total cost of the transit center, because my understanding there's $7 million that's been identified for both site remediation as well as the transit center. And what I saw looks like much more than $7 million. The second question is similar to what other people have said. I would really like to see a scale on the site map and also just specify what is the distance from the transit center to Woodward, to State Fair, to 8 Mile. Have a lot of questions and concerns about pedestrian safety and maintenance of crosswalks. Will the crosswalks, when they intersect where vehicle traffic's going, be signalized? what kind of controls will you have when there's crossing of pedestrian and non-motorized with the motorized, as well as I am very concerned about the maintenance of the sidewalks and crosswalks, because I have not been to the transit center since the pandemic, but in the past, you have to be an Olympic jumper to get off the bus to avoid slush or ice or different things. And it's very unsafe. And I consider myself very able-bodied, but it's just a dangerous situation with the buildup of ice and slush, leaves, other things. I am concerned about who is responsible for maintenance, who's responsible for policing. Is it the transit police, DPD, or some other entity, or will it be contracted out to someone who's not really familiar with our transit community? And we are a community. And my last is some suggestions about effective community engagement. Sounds like there's been some other questions, comments that have come up with other meetings. Can we do maybe an FAQ? So we'll be aware of what has already been discussed and addressed, as well as doing some poster boards, some weatherproof
time
poster boards at the transit centers.
Okay, this is, good afternoon, Ms. Johnson. This is Chief Brown, Transit Police. There will definitely be a transit police presence, and we'll be the authorizing agency to conduct the law enforcement. We will also have the security staff that Mr. Zek is in charge of.
Yes. If you turn it over to me.
Go ahead, Richard.
Okay. DDOT safety, which includes our service cars, will look at the transit facility and put in the proper policies and procedures that are needed to maintain security and work with the transit police. In addition, while the building is being constructed, while the project is taking shape, there are preliminary hazard assessments and operational hazard assessments that can be done to account for any hazard that is seen to be there, and ways to eliminate and reduce risk as it relates to security.
And Ms. Johnson, I believe you asked about the total cost of the project. Currently, we are working under the $7 million authorization that City Council approved. The DBA will continue to work with DDOT, the City of Detroit, and City Council for the final total project cost for this project. Meanwhile, we will continue to do our community outreach, take in all the information that can impact the project also for the projected total project budget.
Okay. Who do we have next? Let's see. Galaxy A01. Goodness, Galaxy.
Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good afternoon to everyone, first of all. I saw this meeting on my way to work this morning, and so I just tried my best to make it, so I'm glad I'm able to make it. But my question with the new transit center for the State Fairgrounds is this here. With it being a transit center, will that affect the number of routes coming through there now? Would it be an increase in routes? Would it be a decrease in route? Would it be the same? As far as accessibility, is it going to be 24 hours? Is it going to be a certain time where it's accessible during the day to the evening or night? That type of thing is what I'm really thinking about and concerned about when it comes to the transit center on the State Fairgrounds.
The transit center itself, this is Steve Patrick, Executive Manager of Service Development and Scheduling. The transit center itself would not influence the amount of service that we have. You wouldn't have any more or any less because there is a transit center. And And I know we are talking about working on the access issues of 24 hours, but only after the whole COVID crisis has passed over. We can start that conversation.
Okay. Other than that, the other individuals pretty much answered the question as far as maintenance, especially when we start getting inclement weather when the winter comes around. So that's about it. That was a good question about the fast bus. Even though the fast bus is not that far of a distance from actually how it's set up now, but just to know if that smart bus is going to be allowed to come up in there to make pickup, especially the fast bus. That's the one, that fast bus.
Yes.
That's all I had.
Yes. Thank you very much. As it pertains to the fast bus, as we were developing this, SMART was involved, and we had long discussions on how we would be able to get the vehicles in and out as quickly as possible. And the traffic flow that is showed today and the anticipated traffic going out to the main road showed that SMART would be able to service the transit center. Now, of course, we have to take a hard look at it as development around it takes place to see if there's any impact, but we also work with various city departments to make sure that we'll be able to accomplish it. So right now, we do not see any major effect, not only on the DDOT bus as far as headway and timing, but also the SMART bus. So that's the intent at this time. And as I mentioned, as more meetings are move forward, from the public standpoint, we'll be having more meetings between DDOT and SMART to make sure that we work as partners to make this happen.
Okay. Don't necessarily see any new. I think everyone has gone one time. We can go around two. Does any, just as a reminder, if you'd like to comment, that you can please raise your hand. I know there are some in the chat. It's a little difficult because I'm not sure all that has been announced. I know there was already one saying will the regional transit share this facility? Okay, and there's another about the site and whether a question about any meeting rooms at the State Fair facility.
Ms. Torrance, I can comment on the meeting room. So we haven't planned for meeting rooms, but obviously we do have unprogrammed space along the west side of the building that could be multi-purpose. It's just a question of the need and the practicality.
Thank you. Was to ask any shelter on the outside for those who are very sensitive to all the elements?
Are we looking for like a bus stop shelters or?
It just says shelter, so I believe it's something like if it's rain to protect them, cover them, rain, snowing, or they're just not outside.
No, we haven't programmed for a lodge. Yeah, Sean, you can show them what we have programmed for.
Here, let me just at least get into the 3D. So we have the covered walks, which is partially covered, but there's no real exterior enclosed seating areas, I want to say, but any spots where there's bus stops, there's seating areas and covered out of the elements. This view. Same with the 2 bus stops that are outside of the transit center here. I guess that question would have to be a little bit more specific. Maybe an example could be forwarded.
Okay, that came from Ms. Marguerite. If you can clarify that comment, and I will answer it, announce it again. I know you said on the outside, but they're looking for a little bit more specific.
Yeah, if you're waiting for a bus on the outside, there is a shelter for that at those 4 outside locations.
Okay, yes, just something. Okay, thank you. There's a comment regarding where is the $7 million coming from? And is there a plan in place to deal with cost overruns? If so, where will that money come from?
Again, as stated earlier by Director Oglesby, the $7 million was approved from City Council. And that came from the sale of the property, I believe. Typically, we don't like to have cost overruns. So that's why we want to do these outreach. We want to capture everything and come back with one budget and build to budget. So it doesn't mean that we're going to be able to capture everything because, you know, there's not all the money in the world. So we do have to be practical and cognizant of using funds and what's available.
Thank you. Let's see, one more new one popped up. Let's see. Okay, and this was just a comment to reiterate that knowing how smart, and specifically the very popular fast Woodward Connect to the center are important. Yes, and that has come up. So as we mentioned, we will begin together and find out more on that. I will, again, I know there's some that I haven't gotten to or remain unanswered, but we will, they are still noted. I'm going to jump back again to the second round. If you would like to make your comment verbally, I'll go ahead and do that. Again, we'll keep it to 2 minutes. So round 2, Delusion Detroit resident. Did you have a second comment? Okay. You know what I'll do too. Let me lower all the hands that may be left over. I'm going to lower all hands. And then if you would like to ask another question, please re-raise it. Thank you. Ruth Johnson, I see is first. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Ruth again. Thank you for answering the questions, but I would appreciate responses to my questions about distance to 8 Mile Woodward and State Fair. And I think it's very important when you show a map, show a scale. So if we can have some ballpark about distances, about the FAQs being posted both online and where it's easily accessible to people who don't have internet access, and whether the crosswalks would be signalized where there's vehicular traffic and pedestrians crossing.
I can answer to the scale. We can clarify the scale in these documents before it gets reissued.
And I was just going to say we are working on the FAQs as far as publishing those.
Can anyone speak to the crosswalk question?
Yeah, Ms. Johnson, we hear you with the pedestrian crosswalks. I think that's a good idea. We will take that under advisement and see if that's something we can bring forward.
Ms. Boyd, you're up for second round.
This just a small question. Yeah, less of a big deal than some of the like pedestrian and reuse things we've talked about, but I'm just curious if you could speak to how the dairy cattle building will be reinforced to handle things that are a lot heavier than cows. Well, just curious.
I'll let my architect speak to that. We're not putting anything on top of the dairy cattle barn. Obviously, we have to renovate and bring it up to code. We want to make sure it's a safe structure, so we will do that. That's part of our program too. Sean, Jason, you guys can weigh in on that.
Actually, I might defer to Dan from my team as well.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dan Schneider. I'm also an architect with NOR. The structure right now is in great place. It's been there since 1924. There's very little settlement of that structure at all. It's a very tall structure. It's heavy braced. Everything that we're doing, well, most things that we're doing to that building are on the ground and on the ground level. So the cows only take up a little bit of that space, truthfully. Buses and the impact of the travel on the floor, that's where we're focusing our efforts on. So most of the structure, excluding the end walls where we have to cut openings to get the buses in, is going to stay in place. We're trying to preserve that structure as much as possible.
Jason, anything you want to add?
No, he pretty much got it. We're going to rip out the interior slab, putting in additional footings, and we are preparing for that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. A friend asked me to pass that along, and it's like, you know what? I also want to know that now. Thanks.
No problem.
Let's see if I have any new ones. This Fidoa, you can go ahead and unmute.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for another run through. Yeah, two other things. I just want to say, the outside, the artist renderings do look terrific. So I appreciate that big time. I guess my question is keeping it clean. I'm concerned that that's going to be added to DDOT's budget when we're having a hard time getting just even the basics of what we're doing right now, with the poor pullout and those sorts of things. So I am really concerned that DDOT will have to pay for the cleaning and the upkeep and just everything that's needed for a new structure. Yeah, because I just don't think we have the money. So I was wondering who's going to be paying for that, what budget that comes out of.
I'll leave that question for Director Oglesby.
Yeah, I'm smiling. Patty, I asked the same question. So that will be coming out of DDOT's budget. And we are actually in the process of looking to see how that will fit and what the cost will be. But remember, we do have some cleaning expenses at our existing transit hub. So we won't be doing it there. We'll be doing it here. And then you have the building upkeep. We're doing a full look-see-loo, if you will, at the expenses. And we're going to have to figure it out. But yes, that is a very good question. And it's one that I'm keeping an eye on. And I hope you continue to keep an eye on it with me. And we'll just ride this out together and see what the expense is. But right now, I don't know what the cost is going to be. I'm hoping that I can find funding. I can find from a functional standpoint, a way to offset that cost.
Thank you.
I do not see any hands. Everyone has gone twice. Ms. Johnson, I'll let you go ahead for one more. We do want to, again, if there's anyone who has not commented, you may do so, but we can go ahead and allow for one more. You should be able to, okay, you should be able to now.
Thank you for allowing me to do this. Patty's comment question caused me to think about flooding. There's going to be quite a few asphalt, concrete surfaces. How is the site gonna manage water, runoff, rain events, things like that?
So Ms. Johnson, obviously the green space that we have included around the facility helps greatly with that. With the new construction of the roads, there is structures in those roads that would hopefully help mitigate that. And also, the developer has a dry pond that they had to do for water retainage too. So we don't envision anything, but we are just like everyone else. We're trying to be cognizant of it. We try to design accordingly. Global warming is real. I don't know how much in the future we can look to see what we can and can't do right now to be preventative, but I think we've included what we feasibly could right now. The retention ponds. Thank you. I believe there's 2 retention ponds on this on the State Fair site.
Okay. Without seeing, I don't see any new hands. I don't see any new comments in the chat at this time. I would like to take this time now to, I know we said in the beginning that we are considering, I do want to confirm and clarify that we have confirmed that we are changing our August 12th meeting to virtual out of safety concerns. So the event will be virtual. It will be the same date, that August 12th at 5:30. Zoom information will be posted soon to the detroitmi.gov/that DDOT State Fair. And we will have teams out as we did before with the flyers. We had our teams that were handing passengers and at Rosa Parks Transit Center. So we were definitely on the ground, and we will do that again as far as letting you know that the meeting has been changed to virtual. So, and we can start today, spread of word of mouth. And so please spread the news for anyone who was anticipating that August 12th. Again, it's still happening, but it will be virtual. So as a reminder, you can continue to provide your comments, DDOT comments at detroitmi.gov. And again, all the information, continue to look at detroitmi.gov/DDOT State Fair. I know I didn't do it in the first morning meetings. I just want to make sure that any of our DDOT staff have any closing remarks before we end tonight.
Let me chime in. There was a request in our mention about potential storyboards or comment cards. I'm a fan of old school, so we're going to take a look at that to see if we can sort of put some stuff out there for those that may not have the internet to be able to send it in. So stay tuned for that. I see that was one of the comments. And also, I just want to stress again, not only are we changing the site for the next meeting for safety, but also for a number of people, because I've noticed that we had our average of about 43 to 45 today. Earlier, we had about the same. And I don't think it would be fair to just limit it to 30 and to just have people then say that they didn't get an opportunity. I do know that down the road, on another note, it won't necessarily be a full driver or discussion about the transit center, the transit part, but the overall transit center will be going back out for discussion by the department, the DONS, the Department of Neighborhoods group. So there will be more discussion as we move forward. But as far as this transit center, the information that we received today is undescribable. I mean, we'll be able to take this and go back and add to what I believe is a fantastic solution and an incredible opportunity to move forward in public transportation. So any other time, if I wanted to do something like this, it would take 5 years, 6 years, and would have all types of funding. But to hear that we can have this thing breaking ground by next year is exciting from a transit provider And I hope that you all support us as we push to give you safe, reliable transportation out of state. That's it.
Thank you so much. I think that's a great way to close unless anyone objects. And I know we did end early. So again, if we will leave it open, if anyone has any last comments that they just want to add to our chat room, we'll save it and observe it for the next meeting. So thank you all again for attending. You all have a wonderful night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.